Lore. Character details. Beidou is the leader of the Crux, an armed fleet based in Leyou Harbor. An armed fleet means exactly what it sounds like, a fleet of ships armed to the teeth. Without getting into too many details, everything the Crux does is approved by the Xiangling, more or less. Beidou is a trusted leader, so much so that her crew believe her capable of taming the storms and billows on the sea.
It's Beidou! Even the mightiest of storms must bow its head to her might.
Character Story 1. Beidou is something of a cultural icon in Leyou. Though her fame does not quite reach the same lofty heights as that of the Leyou Xiangling, one can be certain that every merchant in the city knows her name, and that of her ship, the Crux. Naturally, rumors abound regarding someone of her status. People love to tell epic tales of her earth-shattering, or rather sea-splashing, feats. Tales in which her abilities are exaggerated to almost superhuman levels. One rumor is that she can channel electro energy with her sword. It is said that she once used this to cut in half a formidable sea monster from the depths of the ocean abyss with just one hit. Bystanders who overhear such tales generally dismiss them as drunken ramblings. But to any who have ever voyaged with Beidou themselves, these stories are no joke. In their view, if this world really were home to a giant sea monster from the ocean abyss, Beidou would certainly be capable of cutting it in half. In summary, Beidou's abilities are every bit as impressive as her reputation in business circles. So if you hear her lauded as the uncrowned Lord of Ocean, suffice to say that there is no smoke without fire. Character Story 2. Business people tend to put profit before their humanity. This is just accepted as the way of the world. At most, it makes for some light verbal sparring at the dinner table. But things are different in Leyou, where everyone is involved in business. They reject the notion entirely, claiming that Leyou Harbor is a special place where humanity is sacred. Foreign merchants will retort that the only thing special about Leyou is that they've managed to commodify humanity too. To this, Leyou locals respond, then how do you explain the Crux? With the Crux having made a name for itself over many years, it is extremely expensive to charter. And yet, on one voyage, when the vessel encountered a strong storm, Beidou noticed a small private boat nearby. Seeing the way it was tossed about by the waves, she ordered her crew to tow the boat to safety, despite the risk that the Crux's keel might collapse. What little food and water the Crux crew had left, Beidou shared with the rescued crew as she navigated her vessel onward through the raging storm. Finally, after several days, the Crux delivered the rescued boat to a safe mooring spot. Grateful to Beidou for saving their lives, the crew of the rescued boat became her loyal trade partners thereafter. After Leyou locals recount this story, they smile and insist. When you have someone risking their life like that, you can be sure that it takes far more than commodification to explain their actions. Would you really dare to look Beidou in the eyes and talk about the commodification of humanity? Character Story 3. Word has it that the Crux's boss behind the curtains is none other than Xiangling's Ningguang herself. Both of the people involved deny this outright, however, they do so for different reasons. As a member of the Xiangling, Ningguang often needs someone else to do her dirty work for her. Of the many candidates available, she picked Beidou. Ningguang would emphasize that she picked Beidou, not the Crux. Ningguang's collaboration with the Crux is, therefore, purely incidental. Meanwhile, when Beidou hears the rumors about her dealings with Ningguang, she furiously insists that she collaborates with Ningguang on an equal footing. Beidou is her own boss, and no one, not even Ningguang, is sat in the background pulling the strings. Beidou is certainly unique among Ningguang's collaborators. She does not tread carefully or show reverence in the way that most of them do. In fact, one could even say Beidou is sometimes at odds with Ningguang. Ningguang's advisors worry constantly that Beidou is too unpredictable and too much of a rogue, but Ningguang simply smiles and dismisses their concerns. On the contrary, Beidou is the most reliable person in Lei, she replies. Just tell her the truth as well as what's in it for her, and she'll come around in her own time. Character Story 4. Once, after returning from a long voyage, the Crux was holding the customary 3-day celebration to mark its safe return. It was fall, and there was not much to distinguish this year from any other, except for the new chef in town. Xiangling was now officially the head chef of Wanmin Restaurant. The crew was looking for a way to keep costs down, so when they bumped into Xiangling on the street, they decided to lure her on board through a combination of deception and intimidation. When Xiangling saw Beidou, she let her know in no uncertain terms what a difficult position this was putting her in. This is ridiculous. If you give me seafood, all I can do is UA-style dishes. You'll have to know my cooking aims to transcend the conflict between the culinary styles of Lei. Beidou smiled and gestured to the chest of gold coins beside her. We made quite a bit on the last run. How does a retainer of 50,000 mora sound? Never one to shy away from a challenge, Xiangling finally accepted the job, if only to prove her talents in cooking seafood dishes. When the day was done, Beidou was won over by Xiangling's culinary skills. She declared in front of her crew that Xiangling would soon be a renowned chef throughout Lei. She also insisted that they refer to her as Madame Xiangling. Xiangling admired Beidou for her generosity with money and her direct personality. Thereafter, Xiangling sailed with Beidou often, looking for new ingredients from the sea. Having always journeyed alone, Xiangling had a somewhat unconventional take on what constituted a food source. But when at sea, she deferred to Beidou. She found herself surprised by Beidou's vast knowledge of seafood, given how far she usually was from any kitchen. Of course, that didn't mean Xiangling would necessarily heed Beidou's advice on whether something was edible or not. Character Story 5. Some say an object takes after its master. Though it may not be a suitable description, the Crux does indeed take after Beidou, exhibiting the same qualities. However, there are still secrets among the fleet, spreading in places unnoticed by Beidou. Her chief mate would always take new sailors out after their first safe return for drinks and tell them of an old story in detail. In the past, the Crux went on a journey to brave the unknown seas and found itself in a horrific storm close to death's door. At that time, Beidou stood on the deck behind the wheel, singing a Lei fisherman's song in the storm. All the way until the waves died down and dawn broke on their far horizon. The chief mate ended this story with this final line and a look of longing on his face. As business grew and the fleet expanded, more and more outrageously incredible details were added to the story, making the rookies to worship Beidou like a goddess.